How's everyone doing? Hope you're alright. It's Cody there. I'm back again. Doing a video today on bullying in prisons and the after effects of it. Like, does it go on? Why does it go on? Who carries out like bullying? The effects on you and the after effects and stuff, and where it can lead to. Right. As a former prisoner that served in prisons here in Manchester, in Salford, at Forest Bank, and also at Strangeways, the only Cat A prison in the northwest. I've seen a lot that goes on in prisons. Like, prisons are very cliquey places, right? Yeah, man. Prisons like prisons are like the people that are in prison, right? Obviously, like everyone's in for different things now. Prisons are very cliquey places. So what I mean by that is, like, example, like Scouse lads that are in prison here in Manchester, because they might have been a lockout at like Walton or something like that. They come to Manchester, they end up in jail in Manchester, right? So they run together. The Scouse kids, they run together. Like, you've got the Asian kids, right? The Asian gangs and stuff. The Asian kids, they run together. You got the black lads, they run together. You might speak to other inmates with like different races and stuff, but you predominantly run with your own people. So yeah, it goes on. Like I say, there's like a pack mentality in prison. I mean, you can get, right, some lads that are bullied in prison, it can be because of the crimes, right? Obviously, rapists, paedophiles, nonces, all that sort of shit. They're on the vulnerable prisoners wing anyway, so you don't come into contact with them. But like people that might be in for assaulting, like beating up kids or assaulting women, or I know like there's a lad in Strangeways there. He'd been mugging old women, and he got fucked up because he'd been mugging old ladies, and rightfully so. I don't really give a shit about that, fucking muppets like that. It could be anything. It could be because you've got a load of drugs. It could be because you're mentally weak, that you're targeted. I was one of the biggest lads on a wing at both prisons when I was inside. But it does go on genuinely. I've seen it, like the lads. It's like a pack mentality. It really is like a wolf pack, and one goes in and they all go in. You get a look out on the outside of the door. They go in and give a lad a kick in. It can be verbal. It can be physical. It also happens as well where screws target the lads as well. Now that might sound strange for people that live in like on the right side of the tracks, but bullying from prison officers to prisoners actually does take place. That's a true thing. It can be verbal. It can be targeted. It can be the treatment of the prisoner and stuff like that. When you're in prison, right? I'll explain straight up. Right? I'll talk candidly and openly, right? Right. I'm a big guy, and I've been through a lot in my life. Trust me, I've gone through all sorts of shit, right? Just like everybody else, we all live crazy ass lives, yeah. Now, I am mentally strong, right? But when I went to prison, right, prison's easy, but psychologically, it has a detrimental effect on your mental health. Now, yeah, when you're locked behind your door for that amount of time, and like you literally like it's. You eat when they tell you to eat, and you shower when they tell you to shower. Pretty much, well, you can shower when you're on association and stuff, but it goes on. And it had a detrimental effect on my mental health in general. I think prison germinates mental health problems, to be honest. If you've got a problem with mental health, or even if you haven't, and you just come to, like, you're in prison and you've got shit going on in your head, and you're missing your family and your loved ones and all this good stuff, and you're not getting association because there's not enough prison officers and all these sorts of things, and like you're not sleeping at night, and like you could have addictions on the outside, drugs, alcohol, things like that, and then you're in prison, and it affects your mental health, like it really does. And then, like I say, on top of that, bullying takes place, and like I say, it can be for anything. It can be because of the way you look, the way you act, your crime that you're in for. It could be like they just don't like the look of you're from a different area. Like I say, there's so many different aspects of it, and with less and less prison officers in prisons and stuff, like prison wings are actually becoming no-go areas for screws. I mean, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it's a fact. It's like screws lock themselves in the office and stuff, so they can't stop what's going on from inmate to inmate. And like I say, it's normally, you can get one-on-one, but it's normally like there's normally a clique, like there's normally a gang of lads that target an individual. or individuals, to be honest. And like I say, the prison officers are not there to stop it. Like your canteen could have come in that day and they'll come into your cell and they'll take all your shit out your cell, like all your canteen, what you've ordered, all that sort of stuff. And then it's verbal, it's physical. Now, like I say, so if you're suffering bullying in prison and there's nothing the prison officers can do, and even if you spoke out, to be honest, to the prison officers, they don't care. They don't give a shit. You're in prison, which the screw streeters like we're fucking scumbags. A lot of them. There are some decent ones as well, but the main crux of them are like, you're criminals and you deserve to be treated like shit. And like I say, the after effects of that is like, you could be self-harming, you could be contemplating suicide. There's been numerous suicides in strange ways. The prison ombudsman was looking into certain things, but again, once a prisoner's dead, they just see it like he's dead and that's the end of it. But yeah, lads turn to drug use, they turn to, like, they might start taking legal highs with the intention of overdosing, or they hang themselves from their bunk bed with like with a sheet. It's sad, you know, like, it shouldn't be happening, but it does happen. And like, for these lads that see no alternative than to end their own life because of the way they've been treated, it's quite shocking, to be honest. I mean, when you get to that point where you are so prisons, imagine dying in prison, or like not through natural causes, but literally because you can't take it anymore. You can't handle what's going on. And like I say, you're in prison, your head, it fucks with your head, you're being bullied, and the only way you see out is suicide. Now, it's really sad that people seem to have to take that cause, and that, like, that's the only way out for them. But like I say, if you're serving a long sentence and stuff, like, there are lads that go to the screws and stuff like that. I've seen it myself. Like, the lads have gone to the screws and come, like, the next, like, association or exercise, they're still on the wing. So, because you can't move them, because the other wings are busy, are full and stuff like that, and they don't do like, oh, you will swap B wing, we'll swap you with one of our bully victims on A wing, we'll swap him with one of your kids on B. Don't happen, because no one wants to move, really, do they? Because everyone's on. If you're on B wing and stuff and you've been on there a while, all your boys are on there, your mates are on there, so you don't want to move, do you? So the screws knock it back. So then what happens? You've gone to the screws and stuff, and like, so the lads know this, and then it goes on again, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then, like I say, prison genuinely has an effect on everyone's mental health. I don't care who you are, how big you are, right? Prison, right, at times can break people, right? Prison's easy, the routine's easy, all that shit, but being locked behind your doors, not knowing what's going on outside your cell, less and less prison officers, so you're not getting association and exercise and stuff, it really, really does have like a detrimental effect on you. And like I say, bullying happens, like, it could be homophobic, where the kid's gay, the victim's gay. It could be because he's white or black or Pakistani or Muslim or whatever, right? It could be because of his crime, what he's in for. And the thing is, like I say, like, prisons are lawless, right? Like, it's more dangerous in prison than it is on the streets. Now, that's crazy, man. Prisons are supposed to be there to reform people and all that fucking bullshit. I don't believe in prison reform. Just a word so fucking people like Liz Truss can walk around in a suit and feel important. The people that actually, like, govern prisons, and like people like the Ministry of Justice and stuff that dictate what happens to prisoners, it is laughable, to be honest, because they don't live in the real world. They're not, like, they live in bubbles, these people. They've got 2 or 3 fucking houses, they've got like 2 or 3 cars, they've never experienced crime. They live in gated communities or fucking big posh fucking mansions somewhere with fucking big fucking gates and CCTV cameras and like security and all that sort of stuff, but yet they govern what happens to people in prison. And the reason they govern it is because they don't know what goes on in prisons. They've got no reality of prison and crime, so they don't really give a shit. But for the lads behind the walls, like I say, like, there's a lot of, I mean, I can't remember the exact, like, statistics, but like, X amount of people that go into prison have got some sort of mental health problems now, whether that be diagnosed or undiagnosed, right? So you go into prison. Like I say, fucking, I'm a big guy. I've lived through a lot. I've lived a crazy ass life, but like, prison fucking like got inside my head as well. Prison's easy, and it's dead easy, and I never had no problems. But genuinely, like, locked behind my door, didn't know what was going on outside my cell, outside my landing, outside my wing, outside the walls. Didn't fucking know nothing, and it fucked with my head, man. It was really fucking weird. Like, yeah, and it really, like, I was under the doctor for sleeping tablets and all this shit, man. Yeah, like I say, I've witnessed bullying and I've seen what goes on, and I've seen it from afar. I've actually stopped bullying incidents myself as well, where I've actually intervened and said, yeah, you leave the kid alone, yeah, man. Some big kid bullying some fucking small kid, right, just because he was a small kid, and this guy wanted to feel like a man and tried to demasculate this fellow. I said, listen, don't even try to give it to him. I said, I'll fight you. He didn't want to know then. He's like, oh, listen, it's nothing to do with you. But listen, I would have fucking smashed his head in and fucking me off. I don't like bullies. Like, bullying is fucking wrong, man. And we're grown-ass men as well. Like, if someone's in for beating an old woman up or mugging an old lady, right, I'm not going to feel any sympathy for that person. But, like, do I think they should be bullied, like, all the time? No, I don't. Not at all. And then, like I say, for a lot of these lads and stuff, that hit you when you're in prison, you are rock bottom or thereabouts, right? Now, if you're being bullied on top of that, or the screws are giving you a hard time, or the lads are giving you a hard time, like, and you start having these suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, because like I say, if you've got a mental health problem and you go into prison, being in prison actually makes mental health problems worse. Prisons, to me, for all intensive purposes, prisons are simply mental health units, because what happens in prison, people go in with mental health problems and they come out worse, or you go in prison with minor issues and they become bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So to me, prisons are just mental health units with no mental health trained staff. So, and then these people are then bullied. They could be bullied, they could be victimized. They could have screws giving them shit. They could have fucking, like I said, the lads giving them shit. It could be racial. It could be homophobic. And then you've got all this going on in your head, in your napper and that. And then you could just think, you know what? Like, I really, really can't fucking handle this. And then you become isolated. Well, you are isolated because you can't. It's not like you can go away from the situation. You're on the wing with these lads. You're on the landing with these lads. You're on exercise yard with these lads. You go to food, you go for your tea, the lads are there. So you can't get away from it. And it's constantly in your face, and there's a constant pressure there and stuff. And like I say, if you've got it all going on in here and you broke down crying and you tried to get angry and you tried to speak to the screws and you see no, like, and the lads see no, like, escape, and there's no help there. Like I say, dwindling numbers of prison officers and stuff like that. You've got the listeners on the wing, but like the listeners are very cliquey. Like the listeners, the listeners do a job and stuff, and like the listener that was at Forest Bank, he was a good kid. But like I say, the genuine, like, my honest assessment of listeners and stuff, they are cliquey and stuff, and like they will talk, like a lot of them do talk to the other lads about what you've gone to speak to them about. So, and we're men as well, so we try not to speak to the listener and stuff. I'm talking from the perspective of someone that if they was being bullied, they could go. I'm giving them an option. They could go and speak to the listener. The listener is just for those that don't know, a listener is like a counsellor sort of thing. That's a prisoner that lives on the land, that lives on the wing, and that you can go and speak to and stuff. But again, because of the stigmas that are attached with mental health, and like the fact that we're all men and we're supposed to be macho and we're in prison and all that sort of shit, people don't go and speak to them. And if they do, like the listeners are quite popular on a wing, and they'll talk to the other lads, and then it could come out that this lad's gone and spoke to them about suicidal thoughts and depression and all this sort of stuff. But there's no help there. Like, it doesn't. So the listener can't help you. The prison officers choose not to help you. The lads are becoming, because they know they're getting a reaction from you and stuff, and they know they're relentless with it and stuff like that. They've got nothing else better to do, so they're on your case and stuff. And these lads become so low and so down and so depressed that they attempt to take their own life, or sadly, as we've seen in the media, they take their own life. And it's a sad state of affairs, to be honest. Like I say, prisons to me develop, prisons germinate, and people develop mental health problems. And if they've already got mental health problems, they make them worse. And the longer you're in, the worse it becomes. And if you're an IPP prisoner, like in prison for public protection, or I call it indefinite public protection, like IPP prisoners, for those that don't know, IPP prisoners are prisoners that have been deemed dangerous to society, and they're in prison with no release date. They jump through hoops for probation and stuff, and they still don't get out. It should be abolished. There's talk about it being abolished, but as we stand right now, IPP prisoners, like if you know you're serving 10 years, right, you'll do 5. If you're serving 15, you do 7.5, right? And the IPP prisoners, there's no end in sight. It's just like, and I feel so sorry for IPP prisoners. And again, like I say, going back to the mental health side of things, the longer you're in, the worse your mental health becomes. Whether it be, you can become institutionalized in prison. I do believe that being institutionalized can happen in prison. I do believe that. But like I say, your problems in prison are magnified by being in prison. You're at rock bottom. You're in prison. Your freedom's been taken away. You're locked behind your doors for long periods of time. You get out for an hour, 2 hours a day max. Depending, well, I'm talking about Strangeways here. An hour, 2 hours max, right? Sometimes you're locked behind your doors for 2 days before you get out. And then when you get out, you're bullied, and you're depressed, and your anxieties are there, and you're not eating, and you can't speak to your family, or you've got no money on your fucking PIN to ring home. You try to speak to the prison officers, you try to speak to the chaplain, you try to speak to the listener. And then when all else fails, because the system's fucked, these people take their own lives. They feel like they've got nothing else, there's no one else that can help them. And it's a sad state of affairs in 2016 in a developed country, where people actually have to take their own life because they feel that they cannot take it anymore. And yeah, I'll leave you with that thought. But right, guys, thank you very much for listening, and I'll leave it there. Thanks a lot. Leave your comments and likes below. Bye.